This conference will now be recorded.
Directly who will be your trainer. Let me know if you can see my screen and if you can hear me loud and clear. Just get someone can just answer if you can hear me properly.
No, I think your voice is low.
Are you able to hear me now? Is it fine?
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
better.
it's clear.
Yes.
Not able to hear you. Just give me a second. Okay, I'm just trying to fix my headset, so I'm not able to hear you guys. Can someone just reply back? Are you? Yeah, I'm able to.
Hello.
Yeah,
Yeah, done.
thank you. Thanks a lot. Okay, so coming to myself, I've been working in an IT organizations. Currently, I'm working in one of the multinational organization, and I'm working on DevOps. So I've been using AWS Cloud since it's at least 10 years. Since the advent of many services in the AWS, I've been using AWS Cloud. I've part of many on-premise migrations to the cloud, and I'm also architecting applications onto the cloud and completely deploying many workloads on the AWS cloud. So this is about me. So I've been giving the training around 3 to 4 years of complete hands-on trainings I'm giving on the AWS and DevOps. So Today we'll discuss about like what is cloud and why do we want to like learn cloud firstly, and why do we want to understand the cloud and move the many like applications to the cloud, or what is the purpose of it on your like if you're currently working on different roles, what exactly it gives you, what kind of advantage it will give you by moving to the cloud and all those things. So I think so you're already familiar with what is cloud computing. Like maybe many of you like who are attending this session could already be known what is a cloud and what is like at least it could be not only the AWS cloud. You may be at least you know the names of Azure or GCP or AWS or different clouds are there in the market, and what is an advantage of the cloud and all that. So if you look into what is a cloud computing and what is an advantage of the cloud computing, it's like firstly you can think of it's on demand. Like if you want something, you can just go to the cloud and you can get that, and you can just use it. For example, if you want to run a simple server, you just go to the cloud, you create a server, and you can run your website. It could be a normal blogging website, or it could be a bigger website, like something like a social media website, or anything that your company wants. Or it could be a simple 3-tier architecture or a 2-tier architecture that you want to run on the cloud. And generally it's completely on demand. Like if you want the cloud, you just go to the any of the AWS or Azure or somewhere, and you just create some kind of service for you, and you start using it. So firstly, before understanding a cloud, let's try to understand like what is let's try to build some basic application. Like if you want to build a Facebook or Instagram, what exactly you need, how do you architect it, and then let's see how do you go to the cloud, and how do you use a cloud to manage all those things. So then you'll understand what is a cloud. Like you already have seen like this kind of like this is an AWS console. I'll tell you each and every service why it is utilized. I can just go to services and I can tell you like what is this service and that service. It will generally will not be much useful for you if I tell you now. What I'll do is I'll build a small application which is like a Facebook or Instagram. I'll tell you what are the different components in an application that you require, and how does the cloud help you in building that application. So that could be a good way to give an introduction to the AWS services and all that. So I'll directly jump to that instead of telling you all about what is the definition of the cloud computing, what it gives you and what it does and all those things. We'll first straight away go to some kind of application, try to understand how do we build that application, then how do we build that application in the AWS. Like let's see without the cloud, with the cloud, something like that. So firstly, if you want to do anything, like if you want to build anything, you need something called servers and all that. So a server is something which compromises of like a compute, a memory, a storage data, a database. So it could be a normal web server or an application server or a database server or anything. These are some things which is a compromises like what is a server is. So in this course, like I'll tell you from very basics. If you don't know what is it, like you could be from a background of developer, you could be a background of a QA or like anything, like you can be a BA or whatever the background it is. My intention is to give you the complete things of what is a cloud and what is a server and all these things. I'll start with very basics, and we'll go with creating many of these resources on the cloud and try to understand them. So if you see generally the very basic definition of what does a server compromises, these are all the things which a server will be having. Now, and you also need networking to connect all these kind of components. Let's suppose if you want to build any small application also, you need a server which has this RAM, a memory, and like RAM itself is a memory, and CPU, and the storage data, and a DB, and the network components which will combine all these things, and where you run the servers from the internet, the Fire browser, like a Firefox or a Chrome, you try to connect that and you try to access the websites and all that. So in the IT terminology, these are the things which will connect all the servers and all that. You have the networking, you'll have the router, you'll have the normal your mission where you try to connect to any of these servers and try to get whatever application it is. So this is how it looks like. Now, traditionally, if you don't have any infrastructure, let's suppose if you see many companies like Google or Facebook or like the major companies, they started everything from the home or the garage. Like they purchase the servers, they take Dell servers or something, Xeon or something, and they start building the applications on the server. So once there is huge traffic, and once their application is growing bigger and bigger, they try to move into a data center or an office. So let's try to build some application in the data center, in a normal on-premise data center, and see how an application will be there. And later, let's move to the cloud, how the cloud will help you in generally solving different issues that you face in the data center. Let's try to get into those things. So first thing, if you look into the traditional IT approach, what are the problems that you get is you need to pay the rent for the data center where your servers are running, like whatever the applications are running, and where you need to pay for the power supply, cooling, and maintenance, and all these things. And you need some kind of team to always monitor the infrastructure. If something goes wrong, they need to be there in order to fix that and make your application up and running and all that. And you also need to deal with the disasters and all these things. So these are the normal problems that you get in the traditional approach. So now I'll go to an architecture. We'll try to build something. Like let's suppose I want to build some Facebook or Instagram. How the architecture looks like, and what are the various components that comes in the Instagram. Let's try to see. After that, let's try to see how we can build those things in the AWS services. Then you'll try to understand, and then you'll try to go with like what is AWS and all are the services that AWS gives you. Then you can clearly understand. So firstly, to build anything, like if it is a facebook.com or an Instagram or anything, firstly you need a normal VM. VM is called a virtual machine or a small server where you run your application. Let's suppose it's a normal web server. It could be an Apache or Nginx or anything that you run on a web server. You'll have a website running, some simple setup. You have the users here who will have an IP. They will try to connect the fb.com, or like generally if it is not added to the domain, then they'll have an IP. Then they'll try to connect to this particular server, and then they'll get their website. That's it. It's a very simple thing where you just have a private network, you have a simple server, and your users will be trying to connect to it. But now let's suppose you have more and more users connecting to your web server. So like maybe this simple setup is not sufficient. You want to make it as a 3-tier architecture where you have a front end, an application server, and a DB, something like that, a simple thing. Then you'll expand this one to this one. Like you have a web server, you have a app server, which is a Tomcat or a JBoss or Oracle, like WebLogic or anything, which will run the business logic here. The web server is a normal front end where the people will try to access the website, and from here the all the like it will reach the app servers for all the APIs and everything. Let's suppose that is a simple application. Now you need to have a DB for this. So this is a 3-tier architecture now, where you have a server as a front end, like a Node.js, or like it could be React.js or any kind of application. You have an app server and you have a relational database. So now the users are able to reach the facebook.com or anything, then they will be able to just use the website. Let's suppose these VMs are not sufficient, like you have more and more users. The application has grown bigger. Now you have from 10 to 100 users are there. The more and more users are coming to a website and they are trying to access the website. Then you need to scale these things. You need to add more and more web servers. This is called something called vertical scaling, where you start creating more similar instances, like more same kind of web servers. You start creating more and more, and same kind of app servers also you're trying to create more and more. Then your architecture looks like this. People will be trying to access these things, and in the backend these servers should be able to connect to a DB. Now if you see, like one user may hit this one, other user may hit this one. Now you need to have some component which will balance the things, which will should be able to balance the communications. And like if 1,000 users are hitting or 10,000 are hitting your application, you need to able to balance the application and all that. So for that, we'll introduce a component called load balancer. So now all the users will be hitting the load balancer, and load balancer is a component which will decide the first request goes to this stack, the second request will be going to this stack. So these kind of things load balancer will decide. Like all the load balancer has an algorithm, it will decide what packet should go where and all these things. So now the architecture became fairly good. Now you are able to handle any number of users. Now the users can increase to 10,000 or like 1 million requests per second, and all those things you'll be able to handle. And traditionally, this load balancer also should be able to handle these things. Let's suppose if you give 2 CPU and 4 gigs of memory to this load balancer, it should be able to handle 10,000 requests. Again, if it is 20,000 requests, this load balancer will fail. So you need to be in a position where you need to also scale this load balancer. We call it as a scaling. Scaling is nothing but adding more and more similar kind of instances to handle the traffic and all those things. So that is a normal terminology that we call it as a scaling. Now, if you see, maybe you need some other component called a NoSQL, where you can handle much of the caching or user data. Like if you have the username and email ID, password, and all those things, you need to have a different setup than the regular relational database traditional ones. Now you can introduce more and more things. Like for example, you can introduce a NoSQL and also the DNS, because everyone can't remember the IP name, right? So they want to remember some kind of DNS like fb.com, instagram.com, or something like this. So the users will the domain get resolved and it will be hitting to the load balancer. And from the load balancer, you'll have like the first request can go here, second request can go here, and you will have the disk where you can save the data and all these things. So now we have increased our architecture to more into a 3-tier, but we have also introduced a new kind of database, which is NoSQL, which can be a MongoDB or any kind of NoSQL database that we generally use. So this is something we have exponentially grown the architecture. Now you need to have like the faster ways. Like for example, this particular DB should be able to give your queries very faster. Am I not sharing the screen? Are you able to see the screen?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah, fine. Okay. Someone just pinged in the chat saying like share the screen. Okay. Now, sorry for that. Now you need like something where you need to faster your queries. For example, if someone is trying to search for username or something, you want to faster your queries. So for that, you need to introduce something called read replicas, which will try to cache your DB. So instead of directly hitting the DB, now you have another layer of component which will be serving your queries very faster. So this is a kind of normal simple architecture which will faster your queries and which you have achieved some kind of scalability. For example, now if the load is increased to 1 million users, you'll be adding more and more similar components, like we call it as a scaling, right? So you do all these things. Now let's come to different components. Like this is not what exactly the Facebook gives you, where you can also store the images and videos and all those things will be there, right? So for that, you need to have some kind of external storage, because if the hard disk of this particular virtual machine, let's suppose if you are storing the images on this mission, so if you have posted one image, the image gets stored on this one, but image won't be there on this mission. So the first request can come here. The second time when you have done the same request, it can go here, but you don't find the image here. So this kind of architecture will not give you a kind of setup where you can store the images or videos and all those kind of things. So you need to introduce an external storage which can handle the images and videos. So that is what you see in the Instagram or Facebook, where you store the images and where you again go to the images and see on all that, right? So now you have an external storage where you put all the images, videos, and everything here. So now if someone wants to upload an image, they try to just go to facebook.com, upload the image, and it gets stored here. So now I want some kind of filter to all the images. Like I don't want to like if it is some kind of images which is not suggesting in the policy, I don't want to upload those kind of images. So I want to have some kind of filter which would filter all the images. All the videos and the images should be filtered here. So that's the reason I need to introduce another component here. So that is what content filter does. So now people are happy that they are able to upload the images, and we have the content filter in the place, so that only proper content will be stored in the in the website, and other people also can view those content and all that. But if this one is a model, then it should also support some kind of revenue. For example, you want to generate some ads, and for example, if whatever I generally scroll, I should get some kind of targeted ads that I should purchase, or what user generally, what is his interest, I need to generate some kind of ads according to his interest and all those things. So for that, I need to introduce another kind of component that is called clickstream analysis. So how do you click different things in the Facebook or the Instagram? Based on your interests and your all your kind of desires, it will generate a different kind of ads for you, and it should give you those ads. That is how the revenue model is generated for the Facebook and the Instagram. So now this is fine, but I need to have some kind of analysis by looking into all your clicks, like the Facebook, by the way you like the pictures, or like by the way you like different kind of stores and all that. They need to generate some kind of ads based on that. So for that, you need to introduce something called Spark and Hadoop and data warehousing. So what it does is, based on your images and all those content, it will try to generate the ads for you. So all this component, like from the clickstream, storage, Hadoop, all this particular component is something which will give you a business intelligence and which will give you ads for the revenue generation and all these things. So now let's see that all the people won't just use web browsers in order to like go to this Facebook or Instagram. They'll have mobiles, and like these days everyone uses a mobile in order to go to like Facebook or Instagram. But the content in the mobile should be very different. Like you need to have a different kind of like if the normal website supports MP4, the mobile should support a different kind of format. So for that, you will have another external storage here. So you'll have something called video converter here. So for example, if someone uploads a video, it should be converted for the mobile consumers also. Like if a user is consuming from the mobile, he'll come to here and he'll take this particular storage instead of this one. So from MP4, he can convert to a smaller kind of video format, so that the mobile consumption will be very easy. Now let's suppose some videos are getting viral. Like generally, if you see, there are certain videos and certain things which are getting viral and which are in the trends. So you want to make the people to consume it more fastly, then coming to all these kind of architecture and all that. So for that, I'll introduce something called content delivery network. So this is something which makes these viral videos very faster. Like if I just open the mobile and if I just go to the Facebook or Instagram, the ones which are already trending and something which will be firstly, which will come first on my post or on my wall or something like that. So for that, you need to have a content delivery network. And there is also something called the users from India should be able to get the content related to India. The users from the US should be able to get ads and content and everything related to their countries. So for all these things, you need to have the content delivery in place. So that is very important. And now, and you'll have the notifications that you come as a push notification. If someone liked your photos and all that, you need to have some kind of notifications. So for that, we'll introduce something called mobile push notifications. Like if someone likes your photograph or someone views your like whatever the video that you posted or anything, that it should come in the as a push notification to your mobile. So for that, you need something called mobile push notifications, and also the email integrations to check different things. And you need also for the chatting, right? So in the Facebook you do chatting, and in the Instagram you do a chatting. So for that, you need to have the message queue. So from the small architecture where you have a simple one particular server which is connected to a DB, now you extended with all these functionalities, because a simple website or a social media website is not only just serving the content, it does a lot of things in the background. So the real Facebook or the Instagram or Twitter, it could be more complicated than what I'm showing you here. But this is a simple thing, like that we need to understand that there are various components in any architecture. And if you want to build these things in an on-premise, it would be very difficult for you. For example, in the on-premise, if you want to add more servers, then it will be your job to firstly monitor these things, and you need to take a decision. If you want to scale them, you can increase the RAM, or you can increase the CPU, or you can increase the completely new server, what we have done here. And now you need to do this monitoring also. Yeah, this is image. So now you need to do the monitoring also. For example, if a single component goes down, let's suppose this particular VM went down, no one knows. Like you need to have some kind of monitoring which will tell you that VM is went down. And then you need to have some kind of administrator or a support guy who should come here and who should be able to check why the VM is down, and he should fix that. Or if the DB is full, then you need to have a monitoring saying that what is the size of the DB, and based on that you need to increase it. So all these things to maintain in a kind of on-premise setup, it would be very difficult. Like you need to maintain the storage also. Like you have something called NFS or NAS drives, where you have all the images and that is communicated to your application and all that. And if you want to build any business logic, or let's suppose if you want to have some kind of ETL kind of things where you extract the information, and based on that you take more and more decisions what kind of all the analytics that you have on all these things. Generally, you need to have the Hadoop and big data and all these things. On the on-premise, this is a kind of difficult setup, and the monitoring, and if you want, for example, if the developer wants a similar kind of setup, again, you need to do all these things in an on-premise setup, and you need to give developers, and the QA needs these kind of setup, or a staging or the production, and you need to replicate these kind of setup in multiple environments on the on-premise, if you see. Now let's see how AWS will give you different services to manage all these things, and let's try to understand various AWS services, so that we'll be able to just get like real-time analysis of how exactly these works. Now for complete this networking itself, in the AWS we have something called VPC. It's called a virtual private cloud, where you can create this particular VPC and you start creating all the kind of workloads that you want inside this VPC. Okay, so that is, we need to start with the networking part. Now let's try to replace this virtual machines, like what AWS has to replace these virtual machines. Let's try to see that. So AWS has a service called EC2, and the volumes called EBS. So now you replace these VMs with a service called EC2, and the disks that are associated to these VMs with an EBS. So these are like, again, they are put into something called auto scaling. For example, if your CPU is 50%, automatically AWS will add a new server to that, so that the traffic is like, so that the compute is being balanced well. Like if you can write a kind of scaling policy where you tell that if 90% CPU is hit, please add 2 servers to this. If it is the load is less than 50% of the CPU, then remove 2 servers from that. So you can create such kind of policies in the AWS. So that is the reason this particular icon here, which is like the 4 arrows, which will indicate something called auto scaling, where you can expand, or you can like you can scale out, or you can scale in. You can add more servers, or you can remove the servers based on the load. So you can take decisions based on the load, based on the number of requests that you are getting. Let's suppose in the first hour, like if you are going for a big million day, like where a lot of people go to the Amazon and buy the things, or a Flipkart or something, where you need more and more servers so that it can give the users a better experience, where they can purchase the products and all that. So it again will be there only for a certain time. For example, if the big billion day is only on Thursday, so only for that particular day I need to have more servers, which so that the users can easily come to the website and buy the things that they want to have. So I can write up some kind of policy saying that on the Friday I need 10 servers which will be handling that particular website, so that the people won't have any problems. So these kind of decisions that you can take on the cloud. Generally, if it is on premise, then you get then it's not possible to take that kind of scaling policies, and it will be very difficult to handle all those kind of things. Now let's try to replace the load balancer also. So in the AWS, okay, you'll also have in the AWS something called like like application load balancer, which can be replaced with this load balancer. And like even these DB also you can replace. If you see in the previous slide, you have a relational database. So it could be in MySQL or a PostgreSQL or anything. So you'll replace with something called RDS. RDS is nothing but relational database, where you can create the databases and you can associate to your application for that. And in the same way, for the NoSQL, you can have something called DynamoDB. It's a kind of a very simple, fully managed AWS service, where you directly create the NoSQL and you try to connect that to your application. You can start it right away. Like you need not configure anything. So in normal in the on-premise, you need to create some server, you need to install the RDS. If it is a Linux based, you need to install the MySQL or the PostgreSQL or the MongoDB. You need to maintain that, you need to take up the backups, and you need to check regularly the storage and all those things. But in the cloud, it's very easy. Like we'll look into that in the course. How do we deal with the RDS and DynamoDB and all those things? So now let's replace this thing, which is the caching part, where you have this DB cache, right? For example, the queries will be stored, and every time you try to run the similar kind of query, the DB will give you the result instead of connecting to the regular database and all that. The DB cache can give you those answers and all that. So for that, you need to have something called elastic cache. So this is also an AWS component, which will be used for DB caching. And now we also replace this load balancer with the elastic load balancer. So now this elastic load balancer is something which is also which is a fully managed service. Let's suppose in the first hour you get 1,000 users. In the second hour, it goes to 10,000. In the third hour, it goes to 1 million requests per second. So this kind of elastic load balancer, the name itself, we call it as elastic because it should be able to handle any amount of traffic. It is 1 million users or 10 million users. It should be automatically handle the traffic, and it should be able to send into the backend workloads, whatever you configured here. So that is an advantage of the elastic load balancer. Now this is good. We replace the load balancer. We have the scaling in place so that if there are more and more users, it will automatically scale and try to serve your application. And we also replace the DB part. So the DB part is generally a complex one, but AWS gives you a completely managed services where it take care of all the backups, upgrades, and everything. Like you can literally remove like a lot of the roles. If you see the DBA, where we call it as a database administrator, these days we don't find them because the cloud has completely replaced all the things that they generally do. So now let's try to replace these components also. Like for example, we want the content filter, external storage, and all these things, right? So we can replace these things also. Okay. Before that, the next slide is something we replace with the DNS, that is Route 53. So this is a DNS component of the AWS where you give all kind of different domains. Like it could be a dev.facebook.com, qa.facebook.com, or a facebook.com. You can decide whatever the kind of domains that you want. So if you're building an application, you want many domains, you purchase the certificates, SSL certificates, and all those things, right? So these Route 53 and load balancer will handle, like the load balancer will handle the SSL certificates for you, and the Route 53 is something which will handle the domain for you. It could be the development domain or QA or a staging or a production, like the real domain like facebook.com or anything. It can just handle. You can create the domains and everything using the Route 53. Now you need to have some kind of external storage. So this should be something infinite. For example, you go on uploading the images in the Facebook, like you never feel any kind of hassle, like images not being uploaded into the Facebook or Instagram. They literally, like how many amount of images that you upload, there will be no problem. So now you need to have some kind of external storage which can literally handle terabytes of data or a petabytes of data, so without giving you any problem. So without you coming here and increasing the size, it should auto expand and you can upload anything into this. So for that, there is a service called Amazon S3. So it can handle some petabytes of the data. So whatever the amount of videos you upload or images you upload, S3 should be able to handle all those things. So it's called object storage, where you put any kind of object. It could be an images, it could be a videos, it could be a PDF files, or any kind of files it should be able to accept. And the application should be able to talk to the S3 bucket and get all these details. So now for the image filtration, like for example, if you're uploading some kind of images which are not according to the policy and all that, and if you want to filter them out, you can use something called AWS Recognition. So if I'll just quickly open this particular AWS Recognition, I'll show you how it looks like. So it's called machine learning one. So which can filter everything, like it looks into the images and it will compare the faces and everything. Like this is a kind of service which is completely managed from the AWS. If you just upload an image, it will look into all the metadata. It can detect the text, it can detect the faces and all that. And it will see that if it is not based on the policies, then it will just discard that image. So this is how it looks like. So let's go back to the slides again. So this is one of the service from the AWS which filters all the images, and it uses machine learning to do all those filtrations and all that. Now let's try to replace this part, like what is the one that we use, like conversion. For example, we need to convert the videos. For example, if it is from the MP4 format, you want to compress into the smaller format so that the mobile should be able to consume that. So for that, here if you see, you need to like do the video conversion. For that, you can use something called AWS Lambda functions. So Lambda is nothing but a function as service, like it just runs the code. So if you once someone uploads a video into this particular S3 bucket, it will see that, okay, a new video is uploaded, which is bigger size. It can't be consumed by the mobile. It will automatically take the video. It will run some kind of anything. It could run some kind of Python script to reduce the compressions and all that. And it will place in this particular S3 bucket so that the people from the mobile can take that. All these things can happen automatically. You need not go here and you need not run the Lambda function saying that a new video is uploaded. All these things happen automatically in the cloud. That is an advantage over here. So in a normal on-premise setup, then you need to have some kind of other script also, which will be always looking whether someone has uploaded images or videos into this S3, and then they need to run some kind of script to do this video conversions and all that. So even this becomes a big project in an on-premise, but in the cloud, it's very hassle-free. Like a normal one developer can literally do all these things what you are seeing here. So now let's see the other services that we need to see, like the clickstream analysis. Now the Facebook wants to generate some kind of like revenue, right? They want to send the ads, or Instagram wants to send the ads, or the Twitter wants to send the ads. So you need to have a clickstream analysis. What you're clicking, based on your clicks, I need to generate some kind of business intelligence and generate some ads. So for that, AWS offers you a particular service called Kinesis. So this complete picture is being replaced now. We have got the Kinesis in place and something called EMR, which is a kind of like big data, which will take all the data that you are doing. Like it can take up all the different kind of analysis data that you are doing on the Instagram or a Facebook, and based on that, it can create the data warehouse, and there is a business intelligence which will decide what kind of ads needs to come to you based on the user. Like one user get a different ad, other user get a different ads, right? So all these things will be done by these things. So there should be a Kinesis, EMR, Redshift, and for the ETL, we call it as, we need to have a glue. So if you're confused now, but for example, in this course, whether we talk about the EMR or Kinesis, we don't talk about all these in this course. We only see what is a Kinesis in this course, what exactly the Kinesis is used for, or what is a recognition and what exactly the recognition is used for. Like what all the machine learning services does the AWS offer you. We just see what all these things will do. Will not go deeper into that, because this is more into the people who are data scientists who will be using these kind of things. And this Kinesis or EMR, or the people who are already with the background of big data, they can understand this. I can't tell you in this course about how do you create an EMR cluster and how do you do all these things. In this course, we'll look into these things, like all the basic things. Like for example, how do you create the servers? How do you create the load balancers, auto scaling groups, domain names, and about the DB, and we'll just have the introduction of, and we'll also go in deeper sections of the S3. We'll have certain things where we go very deeper into those kind of concepts, and we'll try to understand that. That is what you require for the cloud, like whatever you are in the current role, whether you are a developer and you want to you want to learn the AWS cloud and you want to run your workloads on the AWS cloud, then those kind of information I'll give you, which will help you out in completely moving to the cloud. Or if you're having an on-premise setup, and if you're a DevOps guy who wants to automate certain things and who wants to learn the AWS in order to move from the on-premise on AWS, I'll help you out in the main core things which are required for that. We'll not go into each and every service here. There are like literally 400 services. We'll not go into each and every AWS service and try to understand that. We'll try to see what all the services that are required for taking up anything. For example, if you are a data scientist, you need to know about EC2 instance, RDS very deeply so that you can work on EMR. So these are all the prerequisites to work on any other things. So that is the ones we cover in this course actually. So I'll tell you what we'll cover and what is the scope of the course later again. Like we'll come into this one again. We'll try to replace the different things in for example, data warehousing is done, right? So we'll now try to see about the this business intelligence and these kind of mobile notifications and all these things. So now for that particular business intelligence, you have something called QuickSight. So AWS has a QuickSight where you can integrate this Athena. Athena is a kind of analytics tool in the AWS, which will be integrated, and you can use all this kind of setup in this way. Okay, now let's replace this CDN and this messaging part, monitoring part, email and all that. Now, okay, this part will replace. Now for the mobile notification, for example, if someone likes your image or something, you need to get a notification, right? For that, AWS gives you a service called simple notification service. Using that, you will get notified if anything is changed in this app server, or you'll get an email using a simple email service. So you'll get a kind of a queue messaging also will be there. For example, there should be a queue like one by one, it should take like something like Kafka or something like that. Then you have an SQS. And finally, to watch all these things, let's suppose you have written a policy saying that if 80% of CPU is hit, please add another server. So how do you do that? So there is something called a CloudWatch, which will always monitor this particular application. So it will monitor the application, and if it is 80%, it will alarm saying that 80% has reached, and it will take an automatic decision to add more and more servers based on your load and all these things. So this is what a cloud gives you. Normal on-premise, you can't expect these kind of things. And let's try to if you replace these things, for example, you have a content delivery network, right here, this part. So this is something called a Cloudfront, what AWS gives you. So using the Cloudfront, you have many advantages. For example, if you are watching the Amazon or Netflix from India, and like generally the movies will be different if you're watching the Netflix in US. So those kind of things will be done from the edge locations. So the Netflix has an edge locations in India, so you directly connect to that particular edge location in India, and the content will be served based on that. Maybe in the US, the content could be very different, and maybe some movies will be released in the US and will not be released in India. All those kind of things that Netflix can manage using these kind of edge locations. And you have a CloudFront, which will make your applications very faster. If there are any viral videos or anything that is now which is trending, all these things can be served from the CloudFront instead of coming to this complete application. So these things can be done here. So we'll also look into, in this course, we'll look into CloudFront and what CloudFront does, what is edge locations. We'll go deeper into how do you create the notifications and all these things. And every service that you see here, whatever the service we discuss in this course, we'll go to the console. You will do along with me. I'll go to the AWS console. For example, if I want to create the EC2 instances, I'll definitely go to the AWS console, go to the EC2, and I'll create some kind of servers and some kind of applications, a simple website. And I want you guys also to do the same things. So this complete account that I'll show you is a free tier. Like you need to create a free account in the AWS, and I'll create along with you, and without any bill. Like you don't generate any bill like for the complete course. Also, even for 1 year, AWS gives you a free kind of things for every services. So we'll go with the free tier itself. We'll not cross that. The complete course will go into the free tier, and this will be completely hands-on. It's not something I'll put a slides and I'll tell you about any service and I'll just go out. So it's like we'll connect everything. Like we'll try to create some kind of application like this, not this complex one. We'll try to create a simple three-tier application like WordPress or Drupal in this course, and we'll try to connect these RDAs and everything to that application and all that. And we'll also see like we'll just take a WordPress or a Drupal as a kind of use case, and we'll completely give the course with that application itself. We'll try to create an S3 buckets. We'll try to integrate with the application and see how we can upload the images to the S3 bucket, and how we can see that in the website. Like it's a completely hands-on. I'll go to the S3 and I'll show you how do you create different things to upload your images or your videos or everything into the S3. And again, it's a free tier. Like every service that we use in this course will go along with the free tier itself. So now these are all different things that we have moved from a regular. Like if you see, this was the previous kind of architecture that we had for the Instagram or the Facebook. Like any kind of architecture looks like this. Now once you see the architecture, now you can try to uh, check like what exactly AWS gives you. Now you can interact with the cloud and you can see how the different services will be and what is the importance of all these services. And now these are the advantages of the cloud. Firstly, you will create everything on demand. Like if you want a database, you just go to the web interface, something like this. So you'll come to the web interface. If you want to have a database, I'll just go to the RDS. So where I'll just go here and I'll create a database. So as simple as that. But if you see in a normal traditional on-premise, then it will be a very difficult for you. You need to create a server. You need to install the Linux operating system on that, and you need to install anything like MySQL or something on that, and then you need to use the database. But in the cloud, it's very simple for you. You can just go here and you can create the database and you can use it. So as simple it is. So that is the reason you can increase the size and you can increase any number of databases on demand. If your application needs that, you just create them and you can use it, and the billing will be generated according to the use. Let's suppose I started this EC2 instance. I used it for only 1 hour, so that the billing will be generated only for 1 hour. If I stopped it, the billing won't be generated. So if you have seen in my account, previously I had one particular EC2 instance which was stopped here. So if I just go here, if I again go back to the EC2 here, I'll tell you all these things. You need not worry about how I'm navigating into this. What is this? What is EC2? Why I'm showing you this dashboard? only in the course you will be able to understand. We'll go one by one in the course, but I'm just showing you that if this particular instance, it is a virtual machine, now it is in the stop state. So if it is in the stop state, it won't generate any billing for you. That is an advantage of the cloud. That is a reason all the companies wants to move into the cloud and try to run their workloads in the cloud. And now if you see, uh, and these are the services are there which are required. For example, if you want to build any API gateways for this complete application, let's suppose Facebook will be consumed by some other applications also. Some other application wants to post behalf of you and all that. Now then you need some kind of API for that. So for building an API in the AWS, you have something called API gateway. And for user management, for example, the you can access the Facebook or Instagram using the Gmail ID also, right? So for that, to have all those kind of federation accounts and all that, you'll have Cognito. But in this course, I'll just tell you what is incognito and what is like API gateway. I'll tell you how do you create an API gateway, how do you send all those kind of different get method, post methods, and different things to your application. All those things we'll see in this course. And also about security, like how security is very important aspect in any of the cloud. So in even in the interviews or even in your current organization also, security is something very, very important, right? So how do you secure complete data on the AWS? How do you secure like if there is any DDoS attacks, or let's suppose recently you have got log4j a kind of vulnerabilities, how do you secure all those things on the cloud? So you have a services called IAM. So IAM is nothing but creating users with different kind of permissions. For example, if there is a developer, he should be only having the access to whatever the application that he is working on. He should not have an access to something called big data, where he can just go to the big data and create a cluster. Then it will generate a lot of billing for you, right? So you need to restrict the users on whatever the permissions that they are having. So for that, we use something called IAM, and we use some kind of encryption. So wherever the data is there, you need to encrypt the data, so that if it is a sensitive data, the customer should agree, so that your data is there in the public cloud and all that, right? So for that, you will have the something called KMS, and you'll also have different things here, like you'll have the web application firewalls, inspectors, and all these things. So in this course, we'll go into the security services. We'll see what all the securities that you need once you have your application running on your cloud. So if you see the current Facebook application that we have built, so all this kind of security will be in this. Wherever you have the data, you have the KMS encryption, and wherever you have the EC2 instance, you can have the inspector which can run in, which can check all the vulnerabilities that you have. And generally, you will have all these things in the companies, like you have a security audits and all that. So for that, even in the cloud, they provide some kind of AWS security services that you need to understand. And one more thing, like automation. How do you completely build this all the different services? For example, if you are from the DevOps background, you need to able to create a different kind of stacks on this. So you should be able to create a dev stack or a QA stack or a staging. Even in the development also, I want 4 to 5 dev stacks so that different teams can work on different things. So further, to automate all these things, you need to have something called CloudFormation. CloudFormation is a simple YAML file which will be able to create the complete infrastructure that I have shown you in 1 hour. So it will create all the EC2 instances, S3 buckets, Redshift, DynamoDB, and everything it will be creating in 1 hour. And within 1 hour, you can create any number of instances out of it, like stacks out of it. And you also have something called how do you do the continuous integration and continuous building. So if you look into like in your companies, you follow agile methodology, where you have sprints, Kanban boards, or anything like where you have the Jenkins, something which does a CI/CD part, right? So in the same way, even in the AWS cloud also, they give you something called code commit, where you have all the code. Like if you have a any code, it could be a CloudFormation YAML files, or it could be your application code, like a something called Git repositories. AWS gives you a code commit where you can put all these things. So my point here to show you is a kind of automation. For example, if some kind of developer or a DevOps guy pushes some code in order to create a new EC2 instance, he just pushes a code to the code commit, or it could be a GitHub kind of repository. Immediately there would be a build server which will pick that code and which will try to deploy, which will try to create an EC2 server for you. So within a single click, you create this complete stack, in AWS. Like you can create any number of stacks, like you can give to different kind of teams in developing. Some people will be developing some kind of maybe they could be developing the front end. Some people could be developing the back end. Some people could be developing the Lambda functions here, converting the videos and all that. All these things you can integrate as some kind of CI/CD. So AWS gives you a kind of development and DevOps services also. And these days, many people are going to microservice architectures and a kind of serverless components, right? So for that, I didn't indicate them here, but in this course, I'll teach you there's something called ECS, that is Elastic Container Services, and EKS, it's an Elastic Kubernetes Services. So these are very widely used for the microservices. So you can think of, I'll just write it down. So for the microservices, so you need to have something called ECS, Amazon. These are the AWS ECS and EKS, and these are the two major services. One is about the Kubernetes, one is about the container services. So I'll tell you both the things. I'll tell you basics of EKS and all that, and I'll go somewhat in depth into the ECS, and I'll show you how do you take your workloads of microservices and how do you deploy them onto the AWS cloud. And the same thing about serverless also. Like yeah, this is something done. Okay, this is almost done with the slides and all that. So the same thing I'll tell you about serverless. Like these days you have heard a particular name called serverless and all this, right? So you are trying to approach all your architecture using serverless. Like if you are already a developer, you want to run your workloads on the AWS cloud with a kind of serverless where you don't want to take care of infrastructure and all that. So for that, you need something called Lambda functions, which runs function as service, and you need a Cloudfront, or you need a DynamoDB. All these things will deal in this course. So firstly, why do you want to learn the AWS instead of Azure or GCP, which is already providing same kind of things? If you see the market, like currently in the 2021, every time they release this kind of like what is a market value of different kind of clouds, then you can see that AWS is something which is already always standing top. Like if you see, AWS is something which takes a market share of very heavy. So like there is very chance that many organizations are moving to the AWS for the current setups, or even new kind of applications are built on the AWS when you compare to anything. Next stands with the Microsoft, next stands with the Google, and the Oracle Cloud or IBM comes into these things. So as of 2021 and even 2022, this is a trend where AWS stands out in everything. So in this course, I'll teach you all these things. Like for example, if you come to the services, like we have seen many services, right? Let me show you the slide that I want to show you. Like these are all the compute based on services that I want to teach in the course. I will tell you how do you create the virtual servers, how do you make the auto scaling, and like load balancing and all these stuff. Like what all the things that you see here. Like we deal with many of the services. Like we deal with the storage, which is related to the EBS, S3 storage, EFS. Even though you are not familiar with the names, leave it. I try to tell you these names in the kind of architecture we just discussed there. So maybe you are completely new to these kind of names and all that, but you can think of how we have built a normal architecture and how we have replaced with different kind of services in the AWS, and we have seen that. So this is how the course will go, like which will be completely hands-on. I'll have all of you guys creating the kind of a free tier account, and tomorrow, like the first day of the class, I'll tell you more about what is AWS and what kind of infrastructure they have, why we need to move to the cloud, more like what is an advantage of moving into the cloud, what kind of more services it gives you. From there, I'll take up to the compute part, where we'll install some kind of WordPress application or a Drupal application, a 3-tier application. And from there, we'll go to the storage based. And after the storage, we'll go to the networking component. What is a AWS networking, which it gives you. After that, we'll go to the serverless components, microservices components, and what are the machine learning like services that AWS gives you, and what are the different databases also. It's not only relational database and all these things. So this will be useful, like maybe you are from student, or if you are from normal, if you just started your IT career and if you want to learn the cloud, it will be useful for you. If you're already into the DevOps or a developer or a QA, like you'll try to get all these services which will give you an ability to like write some certifications. And this kind of course will be more into, like I'll deal with something called solutions architect itself, giving you how do you architect your applications, and how do you architect a microservice application or something like that, where you'll cover more things, where it will give you an scope of writing basic certifications. And also with the, if you're already from the DevOps background, I'll give you what you need for the DevOps or something like that. So maybe we'll discuss more tomorrow when you come to the class, based on like what you're working on. So based on that, we can also modify the codes more, which curates your issues, like which will help you out in your current organization also. Okay. This is about the cloud. I don't want to give more information which confuses you, but I'm open to the questions now. You can just ask me anything related to the cores or like AWS cloud and all this, like whatever we had discussed till now. Yeah. Any doubts or anything? Yeah.
Hi Sandeep, this is Adi. Currently, I'm working for media actually, but I started learning DevOps at least 2 months ago. It is
Okay.
okay for me, but now I'm just confusing myself. Like, will it suitable for me or not? Because I'm
Yeah.
an
If you,
BSc computer science background student and
okay.
completely no knowledge about IT softwares.
Okay. Yeah, it will definitely be useful for you, because first thing, we'll go with very simple things. I'll start the course with like, what is a server, what are the components of the server, why we need to have the server, what is the useful of it, like how the internet interacts with the server. After that, like we'll go to simple application, right? We'll try to create a normal WordPress application. So this is how you need to start with. Like if you are targeting something with the DevOps, then you need to understand various components in the AWS. So like I'm also from the DevOps background. Currently, I am working as like, since 8 years, I'm working as a DevOps itself. Like I have the 14 years of experience in IT. So the cloud is the first thing, that best thing that you can start with, so that you'll understand much of the components in the IT components, and from where you can take up your career also. So it will definitely be useful for you.
Thank you for your info.
Uh, Hi Sandeep, are you able to
Yeah,
hear
hi,
me?
Srikant. Yeah, I can hear you.
Uh, the demo was really good. Before I go with the question, the demo was really good. And I have a question right now. I'm a working professional. I have around 10 plus years of experience, which is more of a database administration.
Okay.
If I'm planning to move, and when cloud comes in, and when I'm planning to take something like planning to take this course, like to which stream I have to move into, whether it is, because I have no DevOps backgrounds right now, and there is
Okay.
something else. I think it's architecture. So where should I have to place myself if I'm planning to move to AWS? And take the
Okay.
certification and all that.
Okay, firstly, as I told you, like if you're already working on the DB, and now the AWS gives a different kind of storage where you doesn't require that much amount of DB skills to play with. So firstly, if you look into the cloud itself, everyone needs to learn cloud these days. Like for example, if you go to any organization or any company, you don't have anything without running on the cloud. If you're running on the on-premise setup, people are either migrating to the cloud, or if they are already building a new applications, they are already into the cloud. So there is no point in not learning the cloud. Like if you are into any background, like if you are a QA also, you need to learn the cloud. The cloud is something which is compulsory. So this course is not curtailed only for the DevOps guys. For example, if you are into the DevOps, then you need to know certain more things, like CI/CDs will be there, or if it is like, if it could be a configuration management tool that you need to understand, or infrastructure as a code tool that you need to understand if you're into the DevOps. So in this current course, I'll tell you few things in the DevOps. For example, I'll tell you basics of Terraform, how you can create AWS services. Like these days, Terraform is a tool which is used very widely. And when you come to the microservices, these are the two things that you can start with. So if you're coming to career growth, firstly learn the cloud as it is. What are the different
Yeah.
things that you can run on the cloud? How do you architect the things? Later, once you are clear with that, then you can think like, if your organization is already providing some kind of anything, like some kind of roles that you want the AWS, then you'll already have the knowledge to that. But it's like If you're exactly asking me if you want to move to DevOps or SysOps or a developer, then like what you are already with, if you are with the DB background and all that, I will suggest you to go to a kind of SysOps or DevOps. That would be a better for you.
Okay, okay. There is something called solution architecture somewhat, right?
Yeah.
Architecture.
Yeah.
So that is also with sysops, or that sysops or DevOps? That's a different thing.
So here we'll definitely go with a kind of, like, I'll not give you it's not kind of certification course like where
Okay,
we
I
need to deal many things. Yeah, tell me.
Yeah, yeah, of course.
I'm just trying to show the certifications, different AWS has. So AWS has a certifications like okay, that's fine. AWS has a certification with like something called SysOps, DevOps, Cloud Practitioner, Associate Architect, and you'll go to the professional later on also. So this course is completely like a suitable kind of associate architect also, because I'll go with a some kind of architectures. How do you like, which will be useful, like which will cover everything. Like if you go to the solutions architect, like associate solutions architect, it will cover the cloud practitioner, it will cover the DevOps and SysOps, all these things at a different level. If you just want to go with the DevOps, then you need to learn more depth into the some services if you want to just write the exam. So it will be like that. But this kind of course, you can learn this and you can easily attempt a kind of solutions architect, at least associate solutions architect, not the professional one.
Okay,
Professional
okay,
one, you need to
perfect.
have a real-time experience.
We're not deciding that, but maybe the course would discuss about everything, right? So maybe
Yeah.
where I need to move, that is according to me anyway. Thanks
Yeah,
anyway.
absolutely.
Thanks.
Sorry, I am also answering someone who has mentioned in the chat, like both the things. Yeah, your answer is that like you can move to SysOps or DevOps. That would be fine.
That was my question into, because I've been reading about it. Then only I
Yeah,
planned for the session. So
yeah,
that's what
sure.
I asked. Okay.
Maybe
Thank you, Sam.
while learning also you will be able to understand more. Like maybe you can relate into like which is interesting more. Based on that, you can also choose the things.
And do you have the course details, like how many days, and that for that we need to contact them or what? I mean,
No, no, like regularly, whatever the slides, like for example, if I, yeah, the course details will be, it will be from 45 days nearly, it will be there. So it would be, it's not only 1 month, like it will be more than that, because it's a hands-on and I need you guys also to do the same things that I do. That will definitely take a time. And whatever I show you, for example, if today and every week I'll give you an assignments, not every week, like after discussing every service itself, I'll give you some kind of simple project. Maybe in the first week it will be a simple things. In the second week it will be more complicated in integrating different services and doing the things. Like the end of the course, you should be able to understand all the things. You should be able to deploy an application, run an application, something that you do in the real time. I'll give you assignments related to that. I'll give you every day, I'll give you the slides that I show you. All these things will be there. So slides are very small, like I don't have like more slides, because I'll go as a real time. So I'll tell you 15 minutes, like for example, if today we are discussing about an EC2, then I'll give you the slides around 10 to 15 minutes about all the EC2. Then I'll jump into the like hands-on. So I'll just provide you those slides so that you can also relate to whatever the course is done, and they'll give you the
okay.
recordings every day also.
Along with the session, I think we would be creating an Ec2 instance on AWS, and so it would be more like that, is it?
Yeah, it's a hands-on, like I'll create in front of you, you'll also do the same thing. Maybe I'll create
Yeah.
some kind of things and I'll ask you to connect that and try to get the different kind of answers from you also. So it's a kind of
Yeah.
completely hands-on.
Okay. Perfect. Perfect, Sandeep. Thank you.
Yeah, fine. And I'll also give you certain kind of questions, like we'll also run some kind of multiple like which generally certifications does. We'll try to understand the depth of one service. Like for example, if today I told you about S3, once the S3 is completed, I'll come up with few questionnaires where it will be useful for writing any certifications. So those kind of things also are being done, and I'll tell you what interview questions also. For example, if one concept is done today, we have done with the containers, then I'll tell you what interviewer expects you from these knowledge, and how you need to think around answering those things. All those kind of discussions will be done here.
Yeah, hi Srikanth. For QA people, what are the career options if we learn AWS?
Okay, firstly, AWS, like these days, if you see the QA or developers, they are completely developing everything in the AWS. For example, if you are building a new application, then they're completely going with a kind of model called serverless, where you have got all the services in the AWS, where you need to utilize them and you need to build your services. So for the developers and the QA, literally AWS gives you like AWS developers itself. Like I showed you this particular slide, right? So if you go here, yeah, this is something where you have the code commit, code build, code deploy, and you'll also have something called Lambda functions, which is completely function as a service. And how do you build an API gateways? So if you come here, this slide tells you that you need to create REST APIs and all these things, right? So these things, it will be useful for both developers and QA. And if you just ask me only about QA, there are many services in the AWS which create some kind of test cases, and which has which do all the kind of different browser automation testing and all that. But more it will integrate into these things, like it's not completely separate. You'll also integrate into the code commit and code build, where you need to write the automation test cases and all that. So majority in this course, the QA people can take up serverless and CI/CD part and all these things, so which is very much useful when you are migrating to the cloud. So these days I see all the developers should be well equipped with the cloud information. They should be able to log into the AWS console, and they should be able to do create the Lambda functions and do all those things, right? That comes from all the developers, and the QAs also needs to learn the cloud itself. So that is more advantage in this course for them. So
Yeah, okay.
yeah, okay. So maybe today itself, I can't give you the complete information. Maybe it will be vague for you, but I'm saying any developer or the QA or the DevOps, everyone, this particular course is like for all of them. Like you need to learn the cloud because you run the workloads on the cloud. That is the first thing.
Sandeep, are you the one would be training, will be initiating the training from tomorrow to the other days, or
Yeah, I'll be the
is
one.
it
Like I'll be no, not someone. I'll be
okay,
the one.
okay.
That's the reason I'm saying you the scope of the course also. Maybe tomorrow you can just ask me if I miss anything. Yeah. Any other doubts?
Yeah, hi Sandeep. So myself Durga. So currently I'm working in the .NET. I'm a .NET developer. So will this AWS is like advantage to me to add my .NET technology?
Yeah, absolutely. Because whatever the technology you're working, whether it is a Java, .NET, or Node.js or anything, end of the day, we are talking about the infrastructure and what kind of services it is giving. For example, if you're running the .NET on a VM, you need a DB, right? So you need
Yeah.
to understand how the AWS gives a DB, how does it provision, what kind of DB is there, or you need many things, right? Like for example, if you're running in a container as a .NET application, like these days, Microsoft is also coming with the containers which are running on the Linux, and even .NET is also being run as a container. So now you need to understand the container technologies that are there in the AWS. That is ECS and EKS that I'm discussing about. So if you're anything, like it will definitely be useful, because we are talking in the terms of servers, services, what AWS is giving you. What is a serverless applications that AWS is giving you, not a particular language. It will be useful for anything.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
In AWS is something related to Docker, is there?
Yeah, that is what ECS I told you, right? Sorry if you missed that point again.
Oh,
So like ECS is a kind of service which is about elastic container service. So where you try to run all the Docker containers and everything. So we'll definitely deal with the microservices, because these days we are completely going to Kubernetes and microservices, right? So this would be very important, where we discuss like these are the something that is there already in my account. So where we create the clusters and where we run the Docker containers and all that. So we have the Kubernetes, that is Elastic Kubernetes Service EKS. We have the ECS also. We'll definitely deal with the containerization, like it will take much time. Firstly, we'll go with the basic things and later we'll come to the container part and all that. So you can think the course is divided in this way, like, let me just, I think so you can see the content, right? So it will be, you'll have the microservices part, you will have the serverless, which is more for developers and all that. At least they need to have the concepts of this API gateway and DynamoDB and something like this. And you'll have the storage components, you'll have the compute components, you'll have the networking components, and all this, like you'll have the load balancers, you'll have the auto scaling components, you'll have the security. So we'll deal with all this. How do you do the automation? So we'll deal all these things in the AWS. Okay, any more doubts?
Yeah, Sandeep, one last doubt. To build
Yeah.
all these services, we have to be familiarized with any database or language as a prerequisite.
Yeah, to build in an automation fashion. For example, if you don't want to go to the console and create all these things, you need to have something called CloudFormation. So in this course, generally these days you have a tool called Terraform, which is very famous in the CloudFormation. So this is the tool many companies started using it. So if you're from the DevOps background, like these days everyone is looking for a kind of tool called Terraform. So I'll give you an introduction of how do you create these AWS infrastructure using Terraform, and also I'll give you the basics of CloudFormation. I'm thinking to teach you more on Terraform than the CloudFormation, because many companies are using Terraform rather than the CloudFormation these days. Both are similar things. It's a kind of YAML file, a very simple file, like a text file which uses to create infrastructure. We'll deal with those things. But CloudFormation is AWS native, but Terraform is something which is third party. But I prefer to learn Terraform rather than the CloudFormation, because it's a cloud agnostic and it will be useful for many things, because both the things will have the same kind of learning pattern. Yeah. Any other doubts or any questions? Okay, if there are nothing, then like the batch starts from tomorrow. So it would be 7:30 in the morning.
Yeah, Sandeep, good morning. This is Venkat. Regarding like I am database background. Okay, just I want to know like which services you need to know about this. I need to know end to end or like AWS easy to do like storage and like what kind of services you want to know more on that.
Yeah. So
AWS only.
yeah. So firstly, this course will cover many of the services which you need to know, whether you are anything, like for example, whether you are a data scientist or whether you are a machine learning or a DB guy or anything. This course will firstly teach you the basics. For example, networking is something everyone should know. The compute is something everyone should know. And for example, this storage part where I deal with S3 buckets and all these things, everyone should know. So once you get grasp of all the things, what the cloud gives you and all that, then you can think of, for example, if you're a guy who is doing only data warehousing, like you're a DB guy who is doing a data warehousing, then I'll just give you an introduction of Redshift, but you can understand internals of it very easily because you're already into that background. So in the storage itself, database has a lot of things. You have a graph, you have a NoSQL, you have a graph-based DBs, you have a relational DBs, you have a data warehouses, and different things are there. So it completely depends upon, for example, if your company is only using relational kind of databases, then in this course we'll definitely cover in-depth in the relational, but we'll not cover in-depth in the Redshift, because this is more for a data warehouse guys. So you can think of this will give you the foundation to understand any complex things later on also.
Okay.
Yeah, but for example, we don't discuss the quick site here because this is completely for guys who are more into the analytics. But even for the guys who are into the analytics, they need to know EC2, they need to know ELB and all these things in order to understand that. So that is a kind of advantage this course will give for them.
Yeah, now I understood.
It is Monday to Friday at 7:30, right?
Yeah, for the Indian, like we'll have like 7:30. For the US, it will be their evenings. Monday to Friday will be the timings. Yeah.
Okay, okay. And it is for 45 days.
Yeah, like the course is around like 30 to 45 days. Yeah, maybe like if it depends completely, but I generally think it's like till 6 weeks of the course. Like we can't finish all these things in 4 weeks. Definitely,
Okay.
first 1 week itself will take you to get accustomed with much of the cloud and all that. Later on, we'll go into the complex parts, and like later weeks we'll go into the containers and all that. So it depends upon the simple things. We'll start for the first week, and we'll go to the complex things later on. Once you're more accustomed and once you're able to create much
How
workloads
many
on the
hours?
AWS cloud,
That is up
it will
to
be
the
there for
time.
1 hour, 1 hour daily, 1 hour.
Perfect, perfect. Okay. Maybe we can call them up and discuss it, right? Rest of the same. We can
Yeah,
reach out to them.
yeah.
And if at all, Sandeep, if we are unable to take this course for tomorrow, will there be a session after that once it finishes? I mean, will there be a new session after that?
Like I didn't understand if you miss tomorrow, like
Okay, tomorrow if I'm unable to take the course for some
okay.
reason, I mean, able to start the class from reason. But if I wanted to take up the class again, will there be a new session after this session ends up?
Firstly, you'll have the, for example, if you're missing 1 or 2 classes, then that is fine because you'll have all the recordings. And first 1 week, it will be like the very simple things we'll start with, right? So it's not a big problem. But if you're joining like some other time than this particular batch, then you need to check with those career IT guys itself.
Okay, okay, I'll call them up and check. Thank you,
Yeah,
anyway.
thanks. Yeah. Okay. Any other things? Okay, then. Thanks for joining the demo. See you tomorrow. Thanks a lot for everyone.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.